What the hell have you done? You've entered Comrades. Now what? That's exactly what we're going to be talking about on this episode of Down. It is season 2, episode 1. We are back. Comrades 2025 starts here. My name is Brad Nadauld. We've got Lindsey Parry with us once again. Lindsey, the dust has settled. We've got a new board, and now the panicking starts because we've entered this blimmin' race again, and now we don't know what to do. So, welcome back. We've taken a little bit of time off on this Comrades podcast, but the excitement is starting to build because everybody who is in is in. Where do we start, Lindsey?
Yeah, and it's important that we get started because Comrades is still a long way away. It is true that it's never too early to panic when we talk about Comrades, and time does fly, and so it's important to plan things out. So on one hand, we've got plenty of time, and we want to make sure we use all of that time. But on the other hand, if we don't plan, then that time can whittle away and we run out of time. But normally what happens, Brad, is that actually people will enter now and they'll go into full-blown panic mode because they're worried about qualifying, they're worrying about seeding, and of course they're worried about running 89 kilometers. So all of those things then mean that we come out of the blocks way too hard, way too fast, too much, too soon. And if we don't get sick or injured now, we end up blowing it next year and dragging through injuries. And all that means is that we either don't get to Comrades Race Day at all, or we horribly underperform, or really, in some ways, the worst case scenario is that we get to start, but we don't get to finish on race day.
Yeah, absolutely. So just so you know, next week we're going to be talking a little bit about how to survive the festive season, because that's important too, not doing too much. It's almost like the Goldilocks thing. You want to do just enough. You don't want to do too much, too little. But we're going to be talking about that particularly over the festive season. That's next week. But what I wanted to talk about today, Lindsey, was how do we go about sort of big picture planning between now and Comrades? And as you said, people come out of the blocks really hot this time of the year. And the clue is in the name of this race, the Comrades Marathon. It's not the Comrades Sprint. This is a marathon, and training for Comrades is a marathon too. And you've got to be really, really sensible about it. Let's take a step back here. The sort of panic is now starting to set in because it's people fell onto their keyboards and they stood up and they had entered Comrades, or they lost a bet and now they've entered Comrades. But let's talk about high level. As it stands now, we middle of December almost, and Comrades is still a long way away. What should we be looking at? And I guess this does depend on whether we've qualified, whether we haven't qualified yet. But what does it look like overall as a big picture between now and Comrades?
Yeah, and actually, I like to simplify that process right down, and let's forget about the people who have qualified, because they will still get the same thing out of really planning Comrades properly. And so I really do like to start where we are now, but with the end in mind. So how do we do that? Okay. Well, what we do is we go, right, Comrades is on the 8th of June. How many weeks have we got between now and then? Because that then gives us an idea of how we can structure our training and make sure we do the right things at the right time to build it up. But then, very importantly, in order to do well at Comrades, when do I need to train at my peak? So, what, in other words, is the most important block of training for Comrades? So, I literally start at Comrades and I go, right, I'm going to do my longest run, and my final preparation for Comrades is going to happen at 4, 5, or 6 weeks out from race day. And that's going to be determined on, am I a silver medal runner? Am I slower than a silver medal and a highly experienced runner? Am I a novice? So those are the 3 things that I'm going to go. Am I doing my longest run 4 weeks, 5 weeks, or 6 weeks out? And if I'm doing my longest run at 4, 5, and 6 weeks out, when is going to be my biggest block of training? And typically that will be the 8 to 10 weeks that precedes 4 weeks to race day. So that's typically Comrades training. Now you've entered Comrades and you think you're training for Comrades. And if you are already training for Comrades, you're just going to, by the time you get to that 14 weeks from race day, you are just going to be too tired mentally and physically. So that's the most important thing. You go, that's when I want to be training the most. What do I need to do in that block of training to be able to achieve the goal that I've set myself at Comrades? Okay, so if this is your first Comrades, I would literally set my goal at finishing Comrades and I'd go like, right, what do I need to do in that block? But if you've done a couple of Comrades, if you're a useful runner, if silver is your goal, Bull Run is your goal, Robert Charlie is your goal, if finishing Comrades is your goal, you go, right, in there, what do I need to do? Fine. Now I'm going to work backwards from there and say, from where I am now, I want to both qualify and or improve my seeding and be ready to rumble from that 14 weeks out, which is somewhere in early March. Should have probably just had a quick look on a calendar to give that date some context. But that's really it from a big picture point of view. It's like that is what you need to do to plan. Okay. Then you have to ask yourself what components need to go into preparing for the down run. Have a rough idea of how many kilometers need to be run. That's what we're going to be giving you and spoon feeding you every step of the way. So don't panic too much about that. And what elements need to be there from strength training, speed work, hill work. What are the elements and when do they need to go into the training blocks? And again, that's literally what Brad and I and all the staff at Coach Parry, that's what we are here to help guide people through. But really, Brad, from a simple planning point of view, get out a calendar and highlight the areas that I've just spoken through so that it gives you that real big picture of what, when, and how.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's easy to get worried about the sort of end goal and go, oh, I've got to be doing so much now. But this, in my experience, Lindsey, you're never ready to run Comrades. That's almost like it's reassuring, but it's not reassuring. Like it doesn't matter how hard you train, you're still going to feel that way come May next year, that you're going to go, oh, I'm not sure if I'm ready for this thing. So having that and knowing that is comforting in a way, that it's like, you know what, we're going to feel that way anyway, so you don't need to panic, because when you panic, that's when you end up doing too much, too fast, too soon, and that's when you get injured. And what is the stat? I know we spoke about it last year all the time, but I think it's probably important to lay it out now, because we want to make sure that consistency is the only thing that matters. You don't want to get injured. What is the big stat?
Yeah, absolutely. 64 to 68% of runners who do not finish Comrades don't finish because they start with an injury. Okay, so the 64 to 68 is year to year fluctuations, but literally 60, let's call it 65% of runners that didn't finish because they started an injury. And so that's literally almost everything that we do going forward, is to make sure that we do enough preparation, but that we radically minimize the risk of getting one of those injuries. And Brad, you spoke about you're never going to feel like you're fully prepared. I feel like for Comrades, there are two distinct periods. And the one is that you get to the point where you feel like, I can't do this anymore. I just want this race to come and go. And then as soon as you start to feel fresh again through the taper, you get to the point of, oh, I just wish I had a few more weeks to really prepare for the race. Yeah,
absolutely. Lindsey, while we're talking this big picture planning, obviously there's going to be lots to talk about this right throughout the build-up, is how many marathons, how many ultras. And I think people like having this sort of big picture that they can plan logistically of what they need to do. What is your sort of feeling around ultras and marathons? How many should we be doing? I mean, we're coming towards January, but from the 1st of January to race day, how many marathons, how many ultras? If you're over 50 and want to recover from sessions faster, run pain and injury-free, and improve your endurance, then be sure to join Lindsey and I for our upcoming Faster Beyond 50 Masterclass. In it, we'll show you how we helped a 70-year-old run a 47-minute, 18-second 10K and how you can take those exact same principles and apply them in your training. Simply scan the QR code that's on screen right now or click on the link in the description below to save your seat in the training now. We look forward to seeing you there.
Yeah, so I'm going to give this a little bit of context, Brad. I think you've known me for a very, very long time, and you know how hard I have worked to convince people that you can run faster in the second half of Comrades than the first half of Comrades. And when we started working together, that number was less than 1% of the field were actually doing it. And now we've gotten to a really good percentage of runners that finish in the pods next year. I'm going to get the actual stats, but I think it was something crazy like 13% of the field did negative splits for the last up run. So the things that we say here, there is often some resistance to it, but we've really turned around the way that people run Comrades, and therefore improved the enjoyment of the race itself, but also the number of finishes and the people that successfully achieve their goals. And that's what we're after. And the next thing I'm going after is the number of long runs that we need to run Comrades. So I wanted to give a little bit of context there so that people understand that we don't make these things up. We don't say them because we like the sound of them. We say them because we see how well they work in the people that we can convince that it's the right way to do it. And the bottom line here is that the average Comrades runner does way too many runs over 42Ks. Okay. There is a reason why in the rest of the world, a marathon is seen as an unbelievable achievement. Just doing and finishing a marathon is seen as an unbelievable achievement. But in South Africa, we want that to be a training run. So we must do loads of training runs. So to get back to your actual question there, Brad, is how many? Okay. And for a long time, I've been a staunch advocate of a maximum of 3 runs of between 42 and 50 Ks. That's the number for me. And people try to do more. We were seconding at Two Oceans this year, Brad, when that guy came up to us being held together by tape. He reminded me of that Aussie cricket comedy skit that we used to listen to when we were at high school about the one Australian bowler that was being held together by press stick and sellotape. But this, came this guy with like one whole leg in tape, the other leg with. Anyway, that's what happens to you when you do too many of these things. So to simplify this, it's the qualifier or the one shot at improving your seating. Okay. Then it is another, possibly around the April mark is kind of where I like to do it. In an ideal world, I kind of look towards the end of February, sort of the beginning of April, and then your long run, around about the 6th of May or the weekend before that. But that doesn't have to be. There's still people trying to do the 60K, but I feel like that's a message that we are winning with, is that we've gotten that to the 50 to 55K, which I'm very pleased about. But depending on what that sort of 6th of April-ish, and this year, that's where Oceans falls for this Comrade. So that means a lot of people will be doing Oceans. And if you did Oceans, I want people to do 40, maximum 45Ks on that weekend of the 6th of May. So the short answer to that question is 3 times, spread out well from each other. None of them are done hard. In fact, they should be done at Comrades intensity because they give you a classic opportunity to try your Comrades race strategy and nutrition at Comrades intensity. So that's great. And a minimum of 2 of those need to be done in that vein. And then, yeah, possibly the third one is a qualifying effort or trying to get a good comrade seeding.
Yeah, Lindsey, it's interesting you say like we've seen what works and what doesn't, and just to give that some context from my side. So obviously you've been the official Comrades coach, and Coach Parry as a business has been involved for a number of years, but it's coming close on 20 years now that you've personally been involved with the race. We created a training app back in 2018 that people can train for Comrades. You can get training plans through us, and I'll pop the link to our Comrades Marathon roadmap. We've literally helped thousands of people get their Comrades medal. I just had a look as you were giving that answer. As of today, we've had over 5 million workouts logged on our app. So it's not like we sucking our thumb and coming up with numbers and hoping that, like, we have the data more than any other coaching or coach in South Africa. We've literally got the physical data, so we can see what works and what doesn't, and that's exactly what Lindsey is saying. So it's just it makes sense, and you can't. The numbers don't lie, unfortunately. I mean, you can argue as much as you want, and I mean, you're going to see it. If you're a novice, you're going to experience this. There's guys that have been running Comrades for a long, long time, and what's worked for them, they're going to tell you that's what works. But obviously, as things evolve and things change, we've seen the change and how things improve over the years. But Lindsey, let's talk a little bit about the difference between the up and the down, because I think we're going to have a lot of people on here who have entered their first down run. They're a novice. It's their first Comrade. They're not sure what to expect. And we've also got a lot of people who are going for their back-to-back. So they've run the up. They haven't run the down. What is the big difference, and how do we need to change from that overall picture of our training in order to have a successful down run?
Yeah, so look, we are always such huge advocates of strength training anyway, but the primary difference between the up and the down comrades is the sheer magnitude of the drop from about 37 to go, 36 to go on the down run, to about 23 Ks to go. And then again, another really big drop from about 17, 18 Ks to go till about 8 kilometers to go. So those two drops in altitude are extreme, and they cause an extreme reaction from your musculoskeletal system. In other words, they are just very, very hard. The impact is high. And so the degree of pain that you experience on the down run is much higher than the degree of discomfort on the up run, where the up run is more of like this soft soaking, sucking of energy as the day progresses.
Make it sound like a spa day, Lindsey. That's not what it's like at all.
The down run is much more jarring in your face. So you do a lot of climbing through the first half and the very first piece of the second half, and then it is just seriously bone jarring downhill in that second half. But because there is so much downhill, it is so steep. It's the exact reason why you should be running faster in the second half of the down run. And one of the biggest tools you can give yourself to make sure that that happens is doing strength training. And now is a great time to introduce that strength training. And we'll go into the specifics there when we talk about the festive season next week, Brad. But just to suffice to say that that's the one big difference, is that we really want to do the strength training so that abuse that you mete out on your quads and your shins when you are doing the down run, that you give yourself the best preparation. I also tend to do the hill work part of the training for the down comrades a little bit earlier in the training cycle than I do for the up run training. And that's in order to allow a little bit more speed work towards the end of the race, because speed work has a higher eccentric component or higher impact component than hill work does. And that also helps us to prepare better for the down comrade. So I'd say globally, those are the two biggest differences. Strength training went from important to non-negotiable, and we just want to do a bit more eccentric training as we get closer to race day.
Yeah, and Lindsey, I also think it's important to not get lulled into this false sense that the down run is easier than the up run because it's downhill. And I'll give my experience of my first down run. I genuinely thought people were lying to me, because the first half, at that point in my running career, the first half of the Comrades down run was the hardest marathon I'd ever run. I mean, you climb all the way up to Umlaas Road. I mean, there's some big hills on the down run that you've got to get up. And I just thought, man alive, this is like ridiculous. And then obviously, as you said, that bone jarring on the way down. And then the second hardest run I ever did for marathon was the first half of the up run the year later. So the down run is definitely not easier. It is different. That's probably the best way to describe it.
Yeah, and the vast majority of runners will run their faster comrades of the two on the down run. There's maybe just shy of 10% of comrades runners prefer and run faster on the up run than they do on the down run. So I think that's where the easier comes in, is that people tend to think it's the easier run because they tend to have more success finishing it, or a slightly higher percentage of people finish the down run than the up run. And most people tend to run close to 10 minutes faster on the down run than the up run. But you are right, that 10 minutes, it doesn't come easy. It comes at a cost. And while it's faster, it cannot be thought of as easier.
No, I mean, me personally, I much prefer the up run, but the down run, I'm nearly an hour faster if you look at my best times on the down run compared to the up run. So, yeah, absolutely. So next week, we're talking the festive season. Make sure you hit subscribe on whatever podcast player you're listening to. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any upcoming episodes as well. We look forward to being with you on this journey all the way through to Comrades 2025. And don't forget, if you do want to get onto a training plan that works, make sure you click on the link in the description to this podcast. You can get going right away, all the way right up to Comrades Race Day. We'll be by your side, and we look forward to helping you get your Comrades medal. Lindsey, as always, great to catch up. Thanks for your time. We look forward to catching up again next week.
Awesome. Cheers, everybody.